today. I've just written a little speech that I'd like to just share to just introduce everything. Good morning everyone. Thank you for being here today and for continuing this important conversation about food sovereignty in Bermuda. Firstly, I want to acknowledge that this conversation did not start or begin today. Last November, we had Damon Brangman and Anandi and Chris Faria with Agri Living organized the Food Sovereignty Forum back in November, which brought together farmers, activists, community leaders, and residents who care deeply about the future of food on this island. And so today's gathering builds on that foundation. It reflects a growing movement of Bermudians asking a simple but profound question: how do we feed ourselves? And so because when we talk about food sovereignty, we are talking about something bigger than just agriculture. We're talking about resilience, about self-determination, about the future of Bermuda itself. And so food sovereignty means that people have the right to control their own food systems. It's about how food is grown, how it is distributed, and how it nourishes our community. This means that food is not treated simply as a commodity, but as a human right and a shared responsibility. And right now, as we all know, Bermuda's food system is deeply dependent on imports. Estimates suggest that we produce about only 10% of the food that we consume, while roughly 90% of that arrives on the ship or plane. And on the surface, the system may seem highly convenient, but it also makes us extremely vulnerable. When global supply chains are disrupted, whether by politics, by pandemics, wars, climate events, or economic crisis, our access to food can be affected almost immediately. But food insecurity is not only about global crises, it also exists within our own community. So research from the nonprofit Alliance Bermuda's Food Security Report back in 2022 found that during the pandemic, 11% of residents were skipping meals, 2% went entire days without eating, and 17% reported eating less preferred foods because they could not access what they needed. These numbers remind us that food insecurity is not something that happens elsewhere. It happens right here on this island, often quietly behind closed doors in households, at dinner tables, at breakfast tables, all across Bermuda. And so food is a fundamental part of the cost of living challenge that many Bermudians face today. At the Cost of Living Summit last year, discussions highlighted how heavily food costs affect household budgets. Because most of the food that we have is imported, prices are often directly impacted by shipping costs, fuel prices, global inflation, and supply chain disruptions. And so when those external costs rise, Bermudians feel it immediately at the grocery stores. And so what all this means is that our food system is not just vulnerable, it is expensive. Many organizations have stepped forward to respond immediately to these immediate needs through food distributors, through feeding programs, through mutual aid networks and community support. And those efforts are essential and they demonstrate the power of community care. But food sovereignty asks us to go further. It asks us not only how we respond to hunger, but how we can transform the system that creates vulnerability in the first place. So food sovereignty challenges us to rethink the relationship with land, with agriculture, and with each other. And so today, what we're really trying to talk about is what would Bermuda look like if we were truly committed to feeding ourselves. Imagine farmland that is treated as essential infrastructure, protected and supported in the same way that we protect our roads, our hospitals, our education system. Imagine every parish and every neighborhood with thriving community gardens. Imagine every school where children learn not just about math and science, but about how to grow their own food. Imagine rooftops, backyards, unused spaces across the island that are producing fresh food for our own communities. Imagine young people seeing agriculture not as just something from the past, but as part of Bermuda's future. Food sovereignty does not mean that Bermuda must isolate itself from the world. Imports will always most likely play some role in our food system, but food sovereignty means that we are not completely dependent on some external source. It means that we build resilience at home. It means we develop the capacity to nourish ourselves even when global systems falter. And it means reconnecting with traditions that once sustained this island. For generations, Bermudians relied heavily on fishing, and farming and sharing food with their own communities. These practices were not only economic, they were cultural. They strengthened relationships between people and the land and the sea. And so rebuilding those systems is not just about going backwards, it's about moving forward in a way that is more resilient, more equitable, and more sustainable. And of course, this path to food sovereignty is challenging. It's not going to be simple. Bermuda, of course, faces real challenges when it comes to land, high cost, and competing other development pressures. But innovation, cooperation, and community leadership can lead us toward a world that is new and what is possible, and extend what is possible. So food sovereignty is not a simple or single program or policy. It is a long-term commitment to transformation that requires all of us, farmers, policymakers, educators, organizers, and everyday persons to work together. And so most importantly, it requires a shift in the way that we think about food. We have to stop seeing food as something that simply arrives here from overseas. We must start seeing food as something that we collectively grow, protect, and share. And so that is the work of every single one of us. The work of Bermuda's Love, of Agro-Living, of Green Rock, of Jonathan and his organization, all of us working together. And so looking ahead to today's discussion, shortly I'm going to hand it back over to Chris, who will take us through the results of the survey that was undertaken during last year's Food Sovereignty Forum. And so we're going to review some of those responses together and invite even more input from our community. And then we'll discuss some of the key outcomes of that forum, which was a clear consensus that Bermuda needs a public awareness campaign around food sovereignty, one that helps to move the island towards a more stronger and more resilient food system. And as Chris will touch on, participants identified several desired changes that the campaign should work together or work towards, which are increasing local food production, reducing reliance on imported food, improving access to affordable, healthy food, protecting agricultural land, preserving traditional and heritage foods, culturally relevant food, strengthening community gardens, supporting and training new farmers, increasing youth involvement in agriculture, and improving policies affecting farming and production. So there are a lot of ways in which we can try to make an impact on Bermuda's food security and sovereignty. And so these goals that we're going to be talking about aren't just simple ideas, but there are shared vision for Bermuda's food future. And so today is not just about listening, but it's about actively participating. So this campaign that we've kind of decided to as a collective needs everyone to participate in. So as Chris mentioned at the beginning, we want to hear from you, we want to hear everyone's voices, we want to learn from your experiences, and we want to continue building this future of a truly food sovereign Bermuda. Because at its heart, food sovereignty is more than just agriculture. Again, it's about dignity, it's about resilience, it's about community, it's about ensuring that Bermuda has the ability to live and truly where Bermudians can be free. That is the goal of all of what we're really about. And so if we commit to this vision together of a truly food sovereign Bermuda, we can build a food system that reflects the values of Bermuda, one is rooted in cooperation, sustainability, sovereignty, and of course, love. Right. So thank you. Pass it over to Chris.